On Tuesday, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky sat down with MSNBC about the new updated booster vaccine for the Omicron variant that's about to be rolled out. Surprisingly, MSNBC actually acted skeptical and pressed about whether or not the booster even makes sense for everyone. Watch this.
What makes this booster significantly different than our first round of booster shots? Is there evidence it supplies significantly more protection?
Yeah, this is a really important question. For the first time now, we have a shot that actually targets exactly the variants that we have circulating right now. So about 88% of our variants are BA5, about 11% BA4. And right now, this updated shot is half the original strain and half that BA4, BA5 strain, what's targeted to that BA4, BA5 strain. The laboratory data suggests that this updated vaccine will perform better against the circulating strains we have right now, that it will perform better against other circulating variants that may come, and that it won't sacrifice anything in terms of protection of the original strain. So we're in a much better place with this updated booster right now.
Dr. Paul Offit, an infectious disease and vaccine expert at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, he's also a member of the FDA Advisory Committee, has been critical of this updated booster. He says that a healthy young person really is unlikely to even benefit from a booster dose. It should be targeted more specifically to those who really are most likely to benefit. And I wonder if you agree with that assessment and whether just even saying that adds to what's been, as you know, an ongoing criticism of CDC messaging, that COVID vaccines, COVID itself, the messaging has been confusing.
So first, deep respect to Dr. Offit. Here's what I will say about our updated vaccine. We are simplifying our message. The message is you need to get your fall booster vaccine. So go ahead and get it. If you're over the age of 12, if you've received your primary series, if you're more than 2 months out of your last shot, you can get an updated vaccine. And so we've intentionally simplified the message so it's very, very clear. It's also very clear that those who are over the age of 50, even over the age of 60 or 70, are more at risk for severe disease, hospitalization, and death. And it is especially important that people in that demographic and others who are at high risk of severe disease get that updated vaccine.
All right, well, first of all, she didn't answer the question. The question was whether or not the vaccine makes sense for a young, healthy person who is unlikely to benefit for the booster dose. And Rochelle avoids answering that question and instead just goes into the message. Anyone over 12 who has received their primary rounds and is at least 2 months past their last dose is eligible and should get the booster. Totally and completely ignoring the mounds of evidence that the vaccine may have a net negative for particularly young, healthy men under the age of 30. The anchor even cites Dr. Paul Offit from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, who sits on the FDA advisory board, who has been a vocal skeptic of universal boosting. And the answer is exactly what the answers always are. No answers. Ignore the question and move on to saying the same lines over and over. Get your vaccine. Don't ask tough questions. The people should get an answer to this very basic question. Is there a benefit? The reality is they likely don't know. First of all, these new boosters by Moderna and Pfizer are updated for the current Omicron variants that are circulating, but with variants moving so quickly, by the time they roll this vaccine out, we could be onto a new variant, rendering these vaccines useless. That's possible. It's possible they're still effective, but it's also possible they aren't. They don't know. Now, just look at how quickly Omicron itself has mutated since it was detected last Thanksgiving. The first Omicron to spread was BA.1, and in a matter of 8 to 9 months, we're now to BA.5. That means on average, a new variant pops up every 2 months at minimum. On top of this, several experts have warned that it's possible the virus mutates faster when it needs to. So if everyone is getting vaccinated against the Omicron variants, the virus may mutate even faster to essentially outrun it. That's still a possibility that few are seemingly willing to explore. What we know is the mass vaccination campaigns have not sterilized the virus. On the contrary, the virus is much more contagious than it has been previously. Look at this. BA.1 is 300% more transmissible than previous strains. BA.2 is 400% more. BA.4 and 5 are 560% more transmissible. The vaccination campaigns are not slowing anything down. Secondly, they didn't test this booster on people. They've shown data for it tested on, and I'm not kidding you, 8 mice. Now, they claim that it doesn't matter, and you shouldn't be alarmed by this for 2 reasons. First, because they tested a booster dose for Omicron BA.1 on people. And even though this booster is not for the now irrelevant BA.1, but instead for BA.4 and 5, it's essentially the same formula, just coded for different strains. Secondly, they say you shouldn't worry because this is how it's done for the flu shot each year. They don't test the updated flu shots that are coded for the new variants each year either, because the only change is the coding for the strain, not the ingredients themselves. But here's the thing. They only tested the BA.1 bivalent vaccine on 600 adults over the age of 55. There were studies done on younger people between the ages of 18 and 55, but for a monovalent vaccine. And they found that it wasn't very effective. So they scrapped that formula in favor of the investigational bivalent one instead. And investigational is their label, not mine. Now, the difference between these two formulas is a monovalent vaccine is created for just one strain, and that's it. The bivalent vaccine is made for the original Wuhan strain and the Omicron strain 50-50. Now, why the 50-50 formula worked better in the very limited trial is unknown, but it could be because the trials were conducted when the BA.1 was already irrelevant. So mixing in the original strain gives at least some protection against the new variants. And yes, concerns were raised by medical professionals about the fact that the trials were conducted when the BA.1 variant was no longer in circulation. And they raised concerns that the bivalent vaccine wasn't tested on younger people, particularly younger men who have higher rates of myocarditis. But as usual, those concerns seem to be brushed aside. What's also really interesting about them choosing to use the bivalent vaccine versus a monovalent one is if you haven't received the first 2 primary doses of the vaccine, you can't get this booster. So if you're unvaccinated and you for some reason decide you want to get vaccinated, maybe your new job requires it, your school or someplace you're trying to travel, you have to get the first 2 doses before you can get this 3rd or 4th or 5th, right? Depending on which number you end up being on. Now, it's unclear if you need to get the first 2 primary doses and then the old booster doses before getting this Omicron specific one, but I doubt it. I think you just need to get the first 2 before you get this particular one, but that's yet to be fully clarified. It's also unclear if you can get one of these Moderna or Pfizer Omicron-specific boosters if your primary vaccine was the J&J or Novavax. These are important questions that should be answered, especially for people in more vulnerable categories who may want to get a booster before heading into the fall and winter season. Another important question is, why are they not making new primary vaccines specifically for these new variants so that if you're still unvaccinated and you, for whatever reason, need to or want to get vaccinated, you only need the primary series and not the booster in addition? Because remember, the boosters were an afterthought. They said the 2-dose regimen was it when it first came out. The boosters only began to happen when they realized the vaccine wasn't stopping the spread. So now boosters are normalized. But if Big Pharma wasn't so interested in repeat billion-dollar business, the goal would be to make a vaccine that truly sterilizes the virus the first time around. Instead, it doesn't seem like they're interested in making any meaningful modifications to the vaccines, making them sterilizing and making them safer. They don't seem to be wanting to make any sort of modification. Now, the big takeaway here is this is more of the same. Unfortunately, this is an untested booster with FDA authorization that's being promoted by the CDC director for everyone 12 and older to take, despite the fact it was only tested on 8 mice. And worse yet, many are being mandated by their employers or educational institutions to take it. So now you know. All right, well, thank you so much for watching The Kim Iversen Show. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, join me in my locals community, which is like a better Facebook. You and others can share interesting and valuable information, and it's also where you can watch my exclusive locals community-only live streams. I'm actually doing one later today. I share snippets from my personal life, behind-the-scenes info, and more. It's also a great way to support my independent media journey. You can join for free. We do not sell your email address when you sign up, but if you want to access more of the premium features, it is only $5 a month, and I hope to see you there. The link is down below. Thank you so much for watching.